Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard emerges with people from all walks of life who, through their own unique angle, succeed and flourish. Enjoy the ride and welcome to Unique Ways, an audio podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really awesome guest on today, and I'll describe her briefly. She's an IBM Product Strategist with 13 years of experience in user experience design, shaping the day-to-day lives of over 250,000 IBM employees worldwide. Please join me in welcoming Laura Rodriguez. Welcome.
Hi, Thomas. Thanks for having me.
You ready for 20 questions?
Let's do it.
Question 1. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
So, like you covered, I'm a user experience designer. I'm an inventor. I have about 17 patents, and I'm very passionate about, strategizing around artificial intelligence. So, having been at IBM for 13 years, a lot of that has been about us exploring technology and helping people be more productive at their jobs, which is a really key part of what I get to focus on right now in the CIO.
Great. And just to know for our audience, if you're interested in AI episodes, check out the key episode with John Maeda. He's heading up AI at Microsoft now. Question 2, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
So I once heard that little kids' life goes by really slow because they have so many new and novel experiences. And at some point, as you get older, everything just blurs together. And so, with that knowledge, you could say, I really go out of my way to try to craft like novel experiences, things that are memorable. I'm really just trying to slow things down and enjoy life as much as possible. And I think that's where user experience design, it jumps off the screen and it gets you trying to design a life experience that is really memorable and enjoyable. And so that's something I do very intentionally.
Great, I love it. So question 3, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Well, user experience design specifically kind of found me, not the other way around. When I was in graduate school at NC State, I did a small study in the world of Second Life, which it's like an online user-driven community. There's no gaming aspects to it. And when I found out that there were people out there who preferred this digital life that they were creating versus their real physical life, I got a really deep sense of empathy that I was thinking their experiences online are only as good as we make it as designers. And it was at that moment that there was this sense of ownership to this mediated experience. And so ever since then, that's kind of been the big drive where when you're designing software, people have their goals. They're having to do it in this slightly unnatural way through button clicks. But it's only as good as we make it. And so that's been kind of the driving force ever since. But that's how design manifested for me in grad school, at least.
Nice. And some people struggle with number 4. The question is, what does your future look like?
That's exactly my answer, right? Everyone's asking themselves that, especially if you're in the technology sector. So I don't know, but I do know that it will have something to do around making artificial intelligence, especially this really awesome generative AI boom, more user-centered because it can kind of feel like a barrier to entry. And I actually think that there's so much raw technology at our fingertips right now that I want everyone to feel empowered over. And I think that we're going to need people being that bridge. And I hope to be one of those people moving forward.
Great. And number 5, we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
That's an interesting question for me, particularly because I'm Puerto Rican, but I was born in Germany and I spent my childhood there and then we moved to South Carolina. So I never had a sense of place. I was very aimless in that regard. And when I came to the Raleigh-Durham area in 2008, it was finally in that time that I started to put roots down here. And in the past couple of years, NC State, the College of Design there, has been kind of a real critical place in me feeling a sense of place because I've revisited it in different types of roles. So obviously I graduated and then I would come back as a guest critic. I would do lectures. I serve on the leadership council. And then I got invited to teach a class next spring. And so there's something about being able to give back and mentor and to do it in a way that it's not like faceless digital. It's you're looking at people and you feel like you're doing something much more meaningful. And so I feel like for the first time in my life, very recently, I truly have a sense of community and place in doing things in a way that's inherently more meaningful than it had been before.
Nice. And six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Oh man, I wish I could do that. So I found out a little too late in life, truly what self care is, self love. And I have a 12-year-old daughter. And so a lot of what I tell her is what I wish I could have told myself. And it's basically that there's no such thing as perfect. You need to be your own best friend. Set yourself up for success by focusing on the things you can control and don't hinge your happiness on things that are outside of your control. If I could go back and tell my former self that, I think I would have really appreciated it.
Nice. And what's a day in your life like?
Well, like I said, I have a daughter. She's my only child, very mature. I think motherhood for me right now looks like hanging out with a cool roommate. And so every weekday, she's up and ready all by herself. I just need to grab my cup of coffee and take her to the bus stop. I'll start work right afterwards at around 9. And in the role that I'm in as a product strategist, it really is about what are we strategizing all that day? What's the kind of urgent imperative? Because, with the shifting of technology and organizations and everything is a moving target right now. And so I'm very much listen for need in the role that I'm in. And a really key factor of what I'm trying to pilot right now is understanding the skill gap between users and the products that we're putting out to kind of help fill that with training and enablement materials. I'm really good about clocking out at 5 p.m., enjoying my life, and in the weekends, trying to get the most out of what our town has to offer. I really like giving back to the local economy, so to speak.
Nice. And eight, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Well, this is where, in a way, I kind of benefit from I don't know if you would call it insomnia because that sounds a little too stark, but it's really normal for me to just be awake at 2:30 in the morning until like 4 or 4:30. And so a typical process is for me to pull out my Google app and it's just this beautifully curated feed of articles related to the latest prompt engineering techniques or updates to certain models or new products that have come out. So all of those things in the technology sector that are literally changing daily, it would be, I think, impossible for me to keep up with it in my waking hours to just sit there and read. So I benefit from the sleepless nights that I have, and I don't recommend it for anybody, but it's genuinely how I keep a pulse on everything.
Great. Nine is about tools. Can you talk about your use of digital and analog tools?
Oh, that's a good question. So in terms of, design and the work tools, IBM's always supported best in class. So we've always had access to, Creative Suite, went from Sketch and Vision to Figma and so forth. And then I got into prompt engineering with ChatGPT really early on in my personal life because, at that time you didn't know what it meant relative to your work. And so my family and I were designing this board game. And so I was able to kind of play with use cases and really feel out what it meant to take on that new aspect of tooling very early on. Analog tools, I think I wasn't prepared to speak to that. I don't know. Like one thing it's worth noting is that since we're so plugged in to computers all the time, we actually have a pottery studio in my house since my husband's a potter. And there's something about getting on a pottery wheel and doing something that you can't edit, undo. You can't like go back from any mistakes that ends up being, I think, a healthy balance for the way that we're otherwise working in our day jobs.
Great. And work-life balance or life-work balance. How do you deal with it?
Now I deal with it really easily because it's so important to, you know, have experiences and live life and bond. And so that's why, going back to that advice that we talked about earlier, where I'm really just trying to make the most out of everything. And so I'm a lot better about not letting work consume me. With that in mind, I feel good that I've accomplished everything I needed to accomplish at the end of my workday. And so that makes it easy to unplug and step away. But I think sometimes when you're younger, so much of your identity is tied up in your work. And, it's just something that eventually I was able to find a better balance with.
Great. And 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
I had to actually look up the term for this, but it's a Foley artist. And like old school sound designer, the people that do, sounds for movies and TV. And I just think if you have that job, you go through life so differently. You look at every object not for what it is, but for what it could be. And then you get to have fun in the studio, kind of going to the cadence of the movies. And then at the end of your work, you sit back and you get to watch a masterpiece and know that you had something to do with that. I just think, with the patenting that I do, it really is also about not looking at things for what they are, but for what they could be. But yeah, being a Foley artist, super old school, I think would be amazing. I imagine the role has changed significantly with technology, but that in particular, anytime you see behind the scenes of people making that come to life, I'm just absolutely enthralled.
Great. And 12, what would you not like to do with your career?
Any job that is routine and repetitive, like if you tried to do anything new, you got told, like, that's not how we do it here, would be a worse nightmare for me because I'm looking for innovation and creativity.
Great. And do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
My favorite quote is by Charles Kettering. It's a problem well stated is a problem half solved. And it's so deceptively simple, the impact it has to get everyone in a room to write a sentence and say, is this the problem we're solving? And the alignment and the avoidable pitfalls that kind of gets everyone on board with is amazing. And so I truly do live by getting everybody aligned up front and that problem statement. It's so simple and it has such a huge impact. So Charles Kettering is my go-to for that one.
Great. And how about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
So this one's kind of funny because, we do a lot of virtual meetings and it became commonplace for people during meetings to say, like, you know what, let's take that offline. Let's take that offline. And it wasn't until we were in an in-person workshop and someone said to someone, you know what, let's take that offline. I was like, wait, we are offline. Like, what are you actually trying to say here? And so that started to like rub me wrong because I was like, you know what, like, just what is your intention? Just say what you mean, communicate better, because I feel like honestly, it's never taken offline. Like, so I appreciate more effective and straightforward means of communication than that phrase.
Nice. And you're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
So I kind of poke fun at myself with this one, and I would say toxically optimistic. And I think that's because, you really do get to choose how you feel. And so why wouldn't you want to feel happy? And we're human, so you can't always be happy, but I try. And so I might be the only person who could accidentally spill a cup of coffee and then be like, oh, something good's going to happen later because obviously the universe needs to balance. So yeah, if you're ever around me and you come to me with your problems, I'll definitely be helping you try to find some positive angle on it.
Great. And what keeps you up at night?
I am, this is where I'm completely the opposite from my husband, where if I'm not early with something, I'm late. And so things will nag at me and literally like physically feel achy unless I get it done very early. Like I have a presentation. I need to be done a week early and rehearsed to feel comfortable. And so I sit in a lot of like discomfort trying to get things done as if it's last minute, but it's not. And so, you will never find me not prepared, but it's painful and it hurts to get there. And so, since my husband's the complete opposite, like he'll start at midnight kind of thing. So we end up balancing each other in that way. But yeah, I can be very kind of staying up thinking about all the things I need to do.
Cool. And how about a dream you're chasing?
The dream that I currently have is one shared with my family. So when my daughter was 10, she pretty much started to invent a board game, and we were creating rules and having a lot of fun with it in house. And then it was like, you know what? We're having so much fun with this. We want to share this. And so we joined a game design community in North Carolina. We've been going to board game conferences and, building it up in Fidelity, and we're getting close now to quoting manufacturing costs. So to have been investing almost 2 years now into this board game, the idea that it could be on a store shelf, or that someone could be playing it and enjoying it as much as we have been enjoying playing it and making it, that literally is the dream right now. And it's been a really cool hobby to have as a family, making that happen.
Nice. And last few here. What inspires you?
Oh, honestly, when I had to think about this, I'm very inspired by just really talented people. Like when someone is so good at what they do and they make it look effortless and they're so humble. Are you kidding me? Like that is absolute peak inspiration there. And I love when it happens in all kind of mediums and domains. Like I am absolute inspired by anyone who's just top of their game and makes it look easy. That's where my jaw drops.
Nice. And 19. Any advice you'd like to share?
I have some advice I'll carry forward that I got in a really weird place. We were at a bonsai exhibit in Wilmington, and there was this lady tending to the bonsai trees, and I came up to her and I was just like, what you do is so amazing. I could never. It looks so hard. I would mess them up. I was just in awe because it's such there's so many ways you can do it. I would just imagine I would do it all wrong. And she so peacefully said, if you like it, you're doing it right. And I instantly knew that that advice was much more than just bonsai. Like that became like a life filter.
Mm.
So anytime I would be doing something, if I start to question this, that, and the other, I would literally just stop and ask myself, do I like it? Because if I like it, then I'm doing it right. And so I start to trust my instincts a little bit more and follow my passion.
Great. And finally, number 20. How can our listeners keep tabs on you, and what's our call to action?
You can keep tabs on me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely trying to go out there and put any, AI insights, or as I go into the spring teaching this course, anything we learn as a class about cool ways of leveraging AI in design thinking. That'll be a good place to keep tabs on that. And then, you're more than welcome to go to diceinvasion.com to check out our game. We're taking up subscribers for our Kickstarter that's happening next year. I can assure you that even though I give the advice, nothing is perfect, this is going to be perfect. But I think that pretty much covers my digital footprint.
Awesome. Super inspiring. Thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
If you liked today's podcast, I encourage you to have a listen to other episodes. You can easily find them at uniqueways.ca or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on social media. And thank you. It's you that makes these great, and it's you who these are for. Stay tuned for more unique ways.